The fascinating thing, again, about these indictments for Trump, there is no indication that they are meaningfully moving the needle in terms of support for Donald Trump within the Republican Party. I suspect that within the context of the general election, it will move the needle a little bit. And really, that's all you need. You don't need much. And but we've got this dynamic now where Trump is running against DeSantis. DeSantis seems to be, just basically running under the Trump will go to jail strategy.
Yeah, biding time.
But here's the thing that is really sort of like, what is animating the Republican voter? What animates the primary voter for the Republican Party? Because, and this is important, because, and people don't mean it as a compliment to Democrats, and it's unfortunate because I think to a certain extent, we can argue as to who really the base of the Democratic Party is, or rather what that base believes. But the Republican Party, particularly now, but it's been this case for well over a decade, their base dictates what they do. That is why, they have not won. They've won one national presidential election in 30 years. And that one was in the wake of 9/11 for an incumbent president. Outside of that, they've lost the popular vote in every single one of those. The reason why they maintain their House positions is because they're running in blood red districts. The reason why they retain 50% of the Senate, more or less, is because the Senate is proportioned in such a way that a few people can get represented by 2 senators.
40 million difference in between the 50 that were in the Senate last time, 50 Democrats versus 50 Republicans.
But look at what animates the Republican Party. Let's first play DeSantis. This is the Republican Party base. They're both in North Carolina, DeSantis and Trump yesterday. Or is it Saturday, I guess? Campaigning over the weekend. And here's DeSantis with his way of motivating the Republican base.
Where's he speaking, by the way?
Greensboro also.
Okay.
He's in Greensboro.
Same exact place.
Same place as Trump. DeSantis was Friday and Trump was Saturday.
And I also look forward to, as president, restoring the name of Fort Bragg to our great military base in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and thank the people that have served there, and they're proud of their service there. And it's an iconic name and an iconic base, and we're not going to let political correctness run amok in North Carolina.
So there it is. I mean, it's the political correctness running amok. They've changed the name of Fort Bragg to, what is it, Camp Liberty or something to that effect? Or, and
it's not as rousing as the South will rise again.
Yeah, this is just lost cause stuff that he's recycling.
But it's increasingly nerdy. Who cares about Fort Bragg except Confederates?
Right. But that's exactly the point.
Yeah.
And here is Donald Trump, same place, next day, and the amazing thing about Trump is even he is amazed at how much the party is motivated by just sheer identity politics and hate for a specific identity.
Critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content on our children. It's amazing how strongly people feel about that. You see, I'm talking about cutting taxes. People go like that. Talk about transgender. Everyone goes crazy. Who would have thought 5 years ago you didn't know what the hell it was? But
I mean, there's so much truth here in this. One, he perfectly understands who the Republican base is. Now, I know there's a lot of economic anxiety that led to his election. I'm sure of it. We can tell right here in the general election. I mean, with that said, within the general election, there may be people who are dissatisfied with their economic situation. They'll take a flyer on him in 2016.
But I think that's what's interesting is like there is this economic split, but it's not like poverty. It's the people who just want their taxes taken care of, and then there's like the smaller, but also like generally more income people who are into just a culture war. They don't really like care about business tax.
This is the Republican primary, the Republican base, and they talk about identity politics, this and that. Like, what identity could Joe Biden go into a Democratic convention, state, whatever, and say, like, we are so sick of like, what is it? Like, who? I don't even, we can't even contemplate, like, CEOs.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the Republican lamentation about identity politics is a projection.
Well, I also
they have an entire party that is based on identity purity.
Oh yeah.
They one specific demographic makes up the vast, overwhelming majority, 90% more. And here he is in a race with DeSantis, and all they're doing is arguing over identity. DeSantis is there on the day before saying, you guys are members of the Confederate, and we all know what that means. Nobody's taken their mint juleps away, or, it is a pushback on critical race theories, which is just another way of saying, like, learning about black people, or learning about like institutional racism, or learning about discrimination that happens without even a consciousness to it. You just keep citing the IRS thing because it's the most recent thing. It's a week away where we found out we're auditing more black people without knowing their race because of the way that our tax laws are set up. And this is what the party is.
And just Trump has this instinctive, I said this with Digby on Friday, like, what is differentiating these two different cultural flashpoints that they're trying to tap into here, right? One is that no one gives a crap, really, I think, in the end, about Fort Bragg. But with this anti-trans panic, Trump is doing what he always does, which is crowd surf. He's riding a wave, and he also has this self-awareness, which is, like, I find less troubling than DeSantis's seemingly more, like, frenzied commitment to fascism than Trump being like, can you believe this? I'm saying it, and they're eating out of the palm of my hand. Like, I mean,
and he's saying it to them.
And we
he's saying it to their face.
And they don't care. And we played.
You guys don't care about policy.
We played that Pat Robertson old video, right?
Yeah, about trans
people, where he says if those people exist, and if people want to identify with how they choose, it doesn't matter, right? He was saying that in like 2014, 2012. He would not have said the same thing today because it's not about the substance of it. It's about drumming up hatred and hatred towards an outgroup. And yeah, like, look at this. LGBT
this
for
is from
Trump.
2017. We got Trump holding up a LGBT for Trump, and then go to the other one, to the tweet saying, thank you, LGBT community. I will fight for you while Hillary brings in more people that will threaten your freedoms and beliefs.
I was okay with the LGBT community, but when they started including queers, I was like, no, that's a bridge too far.
QIA, no.
That's a bridge. That's a bridge too. I didn't like the Q.
But Sam, to your point, it's interesting that you say that about the identity politics stuff on the right, because it's also kind of like the rural urban stuff too. Is like Biden couldn't go to the DNC and be like, rural America sucks, and like the heartland is like a terrible crime-ridden place, like you weaponize using like New York and San Francisco and LA and Philadelphia and Detroit. Like, that's not palatable for a Democrat. They could not go out and be like, we hate the heartland.
Of course not. I mean, you're not going to. And what would be but even more like relevant, like, who, like, what Democrats would that appeal to?
Right. There's no appeal.
Like,
there's no appeal.
There's no huge constituency going like, we need to really just cut ourselves off from rural. But no, of course not.
Yeah.
It's just absurd. It's just not. That's just not the way that Democrats work. I frankly, I don't even think they have enough ire for the CEO class and the billionaires. Just even trying to get them motivated to sort of villainize that group of people is difficult. The only thing that motivated, Democrats in the past 2 decades, it seems to me, was the 1%. That was the only sort of like villainization that caught on. And even then, it was with a quadrant or a third, maybe half of the Democrats in terms of like leadership that were really sort of like insistence on that. But this gives you Trump gave you just like an amazing look into, and talk about grooming. He even can admit, like 5 years ago, you didn't know it. But all of a sudden, there are 2,000 over the course of the past like 6 years. There's like another like 5,000 people, some of whom you'll never meet.
Hundreds of percentages of increases before that. Never mind the fact that this is like the left-handedness where people can come out and actually get care and acceptance, and that's why they're identifying as trans. And like just the cynicism of Trump being like, people didn't care about this before, but now I'm just going to say it because they are responding to me. Like, for some people, they might see that and be like, well, that's so nakedly cynical. He's so obviously lying. Why don't voters pick up on that? But they genuinely don't care, specifically fundamentalists that are drawn to the anti-trans panic stuff. They just want the soldier that's going to do God's work for them. It doesn't matter if he's the imperfect vessel. It's almost better, right?
Because like DeSantis is too he's like you're too seriously and zoomed in on this. It's for a purpose, buddy.
Right.
Ron DeSanctimonious.
But it reminds me of like German conservatives that would be like, oh, you guys care a lot about the Jew stuff. We want to also do a bunch of other stuff about our imperial aims, but you kind of clearly focused on the Jews, aren't you? Like, as a demonstration of how fascism appeals to popular bigotries for, power. It's scary.